That's dope, man.
Yep. Testing 1 2 1 2. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna use the technology. You know what I'm saying? Since we got it, bam. That way we know how long we've been recording for.
Let's do two things today, man. Since we're here to
Let's do it.
maximize, let's talk about fatherhood.
Okay. Happy
Right.
Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day, my
Yeah,
G.
man.
You know what I mean?
Happy Father's Day.
And then we're gonna break down the other concept we were talking about, man. But I'm gonna let you set it off, man.
Let's do it, man. Welcome to another episode of In My Bag with Backpack Jeff, where we connect with ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And today, man, I got a very special guest, man, a return guest. Y'all know I love my return guests, yo. And the reason why I love them so much is because I like to see the growth and the development from where they were when we first met, when we first sat down and talked to them, kind of to where they are right now. And with it being Father's Day, actually, what I'm gonna do since it's Father's Day, I'm gonna just drop this episode tomorrow. Like
Nice.
we can just get this thing out tomorrow. How you doing, man? How you feeling, bro?
Man, I'm blessed.
You blessed, man?
In a real way.
Okay.
And I'm grateful.
Okay, I love it, man. Tell us why you're blessed, man. Like what's been going on?
Well, no, I'll start simply, man. I'm blessed to be alive.
Okay.
You know, one of the things I think I learned from the pandemic is a lot of people suffered a lot of loss during the pandemic. Either they lost a relative, they lost a loved one. Some people lost their identity because of being in a quarantine space. Some people, it just lost perspective. And so I think, at least for me, I came out of the pandemic battling some of those things like everybody else did.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I now have a greater appreciation just for my life. To
Right.
wake up and be alive, to wake up in a home and have resources. And so I'm grateful and blessed for the basic things, bro.
Yeah.
Everything else becomes icing on the cake.
Right.
But when I could see my son sleeping in a warm bed and I could open up my fridge and there's food, you know what I'm saying? I got my whip, you know what I'm saying? And I have the spirit to do what I want to do. I'm blessed.
Yeah.
You know, some people desire more, which who doesn't? You know, we all have
course.
ambition. But at the same time, I think we can't take for granted the small things.
Right.
Because really the small things define the core of your life. So that's why I say I'm blessed, man.
I agree, man. When I think about it from that standpoint, I'm super blessed too, man. And with that, right, like with us being blessed, with you being blessed in in your career and your entrepreneurial endeavor, as well as being the man that you are, man. How has fatherhood changed versus when your son was first born and now, right? Like how has fatherhood changed fatherhood in itself, and then you as a father, how have you changed in that regard?
I always tell people, man, I'm the product of a great father. You know, I'll start there. You know, and I'm not going to say perfect because I don't think a perfect person walks the earth. But my father was a great father in terms of that old school model of being a provider, right? I don't think there was ever a day that my sister, myself, or my mom went without. That my dad, if he could do it, he was going to make it happen.
Right.
And, you know, sometimes we as children or his son and daughter, we may not see it, but it would just be there. And that could be from bills being paid to whatever provision and security he offered us. So I had the cheat code because I came from a great father. Unfortunately, sometimes in our community, we all don't come from that space. Yeah. And it becomes harder to accept that role as being a father. But I can't lie to you. David Hamlin was my cheat code. You know, and I know he's going to watch the podcast. So shout out to you, Dad. But from the very beginning, I think all fathers would tell you it gives you focus. Right? I think you're very selfish prior to having children, and everything's about you. Yeah. And that sometimes can be in a good way and sometimes in a bad, but most often in a bad way, because you have no sense of perspective in terms of providing for other people besides yourself and making choices that I would always say, hey, man, if I'm trying to run a business and I mess up my money trying to do too much, it only affects me. But when you have a child and you out here moving recklessly or doing things incorrectly, you've now impacted a person's life that didn't ask for that. Yeah. And can't understand why we don't have the resources, why we can't do this. Oh, because dad messed up. So when you have a child, it gives you focus, and it gives you the opportunity to maybe right the wrongs of the choices you may have made to pour back into your child so they don't make them. So I'll give you an example. A lot of fathers that are maybe, let's say, that 65 and up, their generation were great providers, but they may not have been as emotionally available as they should have been. So me as being a father, I wanted to pick up where my father left off, but now run a little bit further.
How do you be emotional? So I'm having a son. My son will be here in September. How do you
Come on, let's get some. Okay.
You know what I'm saying? My junior, that's gonna be junior right there.
Yes, sir.
How do you make yourself emotionally available for your son?
I think it starts with you.
Okay.
Self-love. You can't give what you don't have. So how do I give love to my son if I don't love myself?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think people take that self-love concept for granted.
Okay.
So I think the first step is to make sure that you're filled with love.
Right.
That you've worked on your own healing. That you've worked on some of your own scars or traumas that we all have faced, small to large. And I think that's the groundwork first. And then understand what's the power of the love you're giving. How does this help a young man become who he is? How does it help them build their self-confidence? So step one is finding love within before you project it on your child.
Okay. Yeah. And I think I'm happy that I'm in the space that I'm in right now, having my second child, as opposed to what I wanted to do was I wanted to have them back to back to back, you know what I'm saying, when I was younger, because I wanted to be the dad who's still like, I still want to be able to play basketball with my son at a certain age, you know what I'm saying? I still want to be able to do these be young and be lively and stuff like that. But I'm happy that I'm in the position and the space that I'm in right now, because I am emotionally available and I'm ready to give him that attention. And when I think about like my daughter, right? Daughters are a different story. And I had my proudest moment as a father, man, with my daughter when she FaceTimed me, which she usually doesn't do. But she FaceTimed me and she was like, "Aren't you my dad?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm your dad," right? And then I was like, "Well, why?" She was like, "Because my friends don't believe that you're my dad." And I was like, "Well, why don't they believe that I'm your dad?" She was like, "Well, because I showed them your Instagram and your TikTok and your YouTube and your website, and I showed them all of this stuff. And they didn't believe that you were my dad." And I was like, "Well, yeah, baby, I'm your dad." And they was like, "They think that you're famous." And I was like, "Oh, for real? They think I'm famous?" And they was like, and she said, "Well, I was just trying to tell them that you're just my dad." And I was like, ain't it just like your kid to humble you, to say, "Yo, this is just my dad." And so what that moment said to me, number one, was I showed up for her, because if she's bragging about me, like I want it to be someone that my kids can brag about. Absolutely. Right. And so if she's bragging about me to her friends, then that means she's proud of me and proud of what it is that I'm doing. Because not many people are going to go to their friends and be like, "Look, this is my dad." Facts. You know what I'm saying? If he ain't out here doing something.
Back in the day, we used to clown the pops. Some of the pops would come around because they weren't the cool pops.
Right.
And they were kind of irrelevant.
Right.
And so, but it's funny because I have the same story. My son's friends will follow my gram, and I'll come around and they'll just like go crazy, like Brian Heat. And I'm looking at Quest looking at them like, "Yo, why they doing that, Dad?" but he likes it because he knows that he has a father who's making an impact, right, and has some little edge and coolness to him that his friends appreciate. Right, like they follow me closer than he does. He's like, "Yo, that's just my dad." Right. But for them, it's like, "Nah, that's Brian Heat. Your pops is Brian Heat."
Right, that's a celebrity.
But it's a beautiful feeling. But I also want to backtrack because you asked a question about being emotionally available. I think the other part for men is being okay with loving our son. Not just saying it
out loud.
Because the one thing, and this is, my father has heard me say this, is that, again, cheat code, everything I could have ever wanted in a father, my father possessed. Again, his generation, I guess, was not that good at being emotionally available. So I'm age 47, and I have never heard my father tell me to my face, "I love you." But I've seen the action of it over and over again in ways unimaginable. Right. But in terms of being able to say, "I love you, son." Yeah. But it's something with that generation, and something with black men of love and saying it. For some reason, we've been convinced by society it's weak. Yeah. It makes you vulnerable to open up to those emotions.
It's like you can only show the physical part of love, not the emotional part of love.
Yes. Yes.
Like that's the thing. And I think it's about trying to figure out what that balance looks like in terms of showing that love. Like I literally see myself and hear myself at the gym having conversations with my son. Like when I'm watching other people down there play basketball, I'm like, yeah, I would tell my son to do it like this. I would coach him, encourage him to do it like this. And you know what I'm saying? So like I hear myself and I see videos of you working out with your son, and I'm like, you know, like those moments, like those physical moments are certainly important, but those emotional moments are just as important, right?
Let me tell you what I told my son yesterday. So I have a 14-year-old. You've met my son, I think, before. Have you?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So Quest is at that age where he gets amazing grades. He's about to go to DeMatha, got $25,000 in scholarship money, 20 for his grades, 5 for playing the clarinet. But he still hasn't attached himself to something that he's really excited about. And so what's interesting is recently working out has been something like he keeps asking me like, Dad, we going back today? We going back today? Even though it kicks his ass when he gets there, he keeps asking, and I'm noticing like, oh, hold on. He likes this. And it's not just me. I used to train him off and on, but I wasn't working out with him. I would just take him through a regimen. Now we work out together.
Right.
And so yesterday we did a leg day, crushed it. I posted one of the videos. But I'm going to tell you where the emotional bow is in terms of putting a bow on that present. I came back to him and said, son, thank you. And he said, for what? I said, son, you know, for a long time, man, I felt like there was a disconnect because when you're a co-parent, I see you one week, I don't see you. And then when he would come, this generation spends so much time on the game.
Right.
We weren't having enough conversations.
Right.
It was just like you would come over, I'd be working on something for the business, or I'm working on something, or I'm at the gym. I said, son, with your newfound interest in the gym, we now have a new bonding opportunity. And I appreciate you. Thank you, brother, for giving me that time. I'm even getting emotional talking about it, bro. Like, I wanted him to know I see you. Yeah. I thank you for taking interest in something that's going to help you, knowing it's something that I love. I love working out, but now we're doing it together, son. And thank you for allowing me to spend that type of time with you.
Okay. With that being said, it's going to segue into my next question that I have, right? Our kids are growing up more privileged than we were, yes. Right? Because the thing is always to allow the next generation to get better, right? Yes, absolutely. We want them to have an easier time. We want them to have more resources, more this, more that. But I'm willing to bet that the things that we have been through made us into the men that we are 100%. Right now.
100%.
So if your son isn't going to get those same hard knock lessons,
right?
How do you still teach him those hard knock lessons without going through the school of hard knocks?
Well, I unfortunately, I got to go back to working out because, you as an athlete who also worked out as well and continue to work out, there's so many lessons in sports. There's so many lessons to be learned in growing physically because you're hitting comfort zones. You're breaking past comfort zones. You're having to push. I call that mom, but that fourth quarter mentality of son, don't, as I'm talking to him, I'm giving him stuff. Don't give up on yourself, son. Mamba, son. Fourth quarter, son. But then I'm also teaching, okay, this is form before weight. I'm teaching them structure. So as you go through.
That's a whole podcast right there.
Right. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? And that's,
form before weight. That's a whole Hey, that's a whole podcast right there. I swear to God, because I'm tired of y'all in the gym, like doing all of this stuff. And
looking crazy.
Doing like, bro, you can't lift that, man.
But what it is, I think it really becomes is because they can't. And I'm going to be honest with you. Let me not sit here and start capping of this hard life that I had. I didn't have this, I'm not going to sit here and say I had this, I had to go out every day and fend for myself. No, right. I had 2 working parents. They were both, at one time got their college degrees. So I'm not going to say I was privileged, but I was raised in a blue collar, middle income to upper middle income family. And so my sister and I had what we needed. Now we still had to be a little bit tougher. It was a generation that built us tougher, but it didn't build me like that way because I went without. Does that make sense? So I'm not going to sit here and tell you I had this hard life where, I had to duck bullets and I'm like wondering where my next meal is. But what I do now is I'm teaching grit. I'm teaching strategy through real life examples that he goes through. And that's my thing is try to find real life things that happen in your son's life or your daughter's life where how can you teach that resilience? I mean, how do you do it? When it comes to your daughter, how are you teaching her? Because even though she's a woman, not a male, you still want her to be as determined and grit and have that perspective and strategy and have that resilience of skin and be able to handle this world. How do you do that in the generation now? Does that make sense?
that makes perfect sense. So when my daughter first came and she saw my house, one of the first things that she said was, "Dad, how come you look rich?"
Right.
And the inner me was like,
right.
But right. The outer me said, I have to use this as a teachable lesson.
Facts.
So I'm not rich. I'm smart and I work extremely hard.
Right.
And what that means is you can have these things that I have
Right.
if you're smart and
Right.
if you work extremely hard.
Right.
And so what I did was I took what she because this generation, you know, they're all about the things and stuff like that, right?
Right.
Like they want to see the things, they want this, and that's great. And so my thing is, I want to be able to, I do my best to present her the thing, but then show her how the thing was obtained.
Right.
Right. I had when I left Pennsylvania, I wrote her a poem called "A Letter to My Daughter," and in that poem, there's a line where I say, I don't want you to think that I'm being mean when I say no. I just feel like if I tell you no enough times, when you ask for something from the world and they say no, you won't be so disappointed.
Big boss.
And so for me, I'm building resiliency through no. There's power in no.
Right.
And so I want her to know that we can have the things, but there is a level of work ethic that is required in order to obtain these things, because these things don't come easy. They come with sacrifice. They come with immense sacrifice. And the older she gets, she's 11 now, she'll be 12 in July. The older she gets, the more I want to teach her about sacrifice and the importance of sacrifice and how sacrifice went into, you know, me getting where I am and being able to provide for you the way that I provide for you. Mm-hmm. So I want to show her the things, but then also teach her how to get it.
And it's funny. So recently, one of the MCs from TDE did an interview, and I caught it on the gram, and it basically was like, all these motherfucking critics out here, what y'all failing at? Y'all ain't even out here. You're not even out here failing. Like, y'all got so much to say, but who's really out here failing? Meaning, I'm a mess up. But through my failures, I'm going to grow and get stronger. So I've been having some conversations with my son about my own missteps. This is where your father has made mistakes. This is what I've learned from it. Because I think sometimes we can't teach from a place of self-righteousness.
Right.
That's not a real journey. Right. So I'm showing him these 5-figure deals that I'm doing all over the country and what I'm trying to get done. But I'm also saying, son, brother, it ain't always been like this. And this has been a step of getting through and making mistakes and learning from it. And this could be in business, in love, in finances. And again, I think the older generation, at least for my household, good or bad, finances weren't really discussed. And I think that's multiple people's family. Your father and mother were not outwardly talking about their wins or their losses when it came to their finances.
Yeah, no.
But for me, I want to be transparent. This is what I used to do. That shit ain't work. Right. This is what I had to do to fix it, and this is where I'm going now. But there is a process. Right. My son is facing something right now where, for whatever reason, school for him just clicks. Mm-hmm. And it's not hard for him. Mm-hmm. But everything else, it's like he's hesitant because he doesn't want to put the work in. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, but bro, you do know the way you get those A's, it was effort. Yeah. And time and killing distraction. Son, I don't care if it's a clarinet. I don't care if it's sports. I don't care if it's working out. If you don't put the work in, I tell audiences, it's work before wins. Mm-hmm. It's trenches before trophies. And so again, these are what you call what? Teachable moments. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And so for real, on this Father's Day, I'm telling all fathers, it's good that you're a provider. You're buying the J's, you're buying the clothes, you're paying the bills. But are you connecting with your child emotionally? Yeah. Is there that connection? Do you pour into them from a purpose standpoint? Like the fact that me and my son, probably at least 4 days out the week before we leave the door, we're holding both hands. I mean, let's try something right now. Bro, let me see both your hands, B. This is very intimate for most black men. Yeah. Like even me looking you in your face and holding your hands like this. Yeah. How? Most folks can't do this. Yeah. This is too intimate.
For sure.
But that's a problem. Yeah. Why can't we as black men, without having to say pause or nigga, I ain't with all of that.
No, right.
But I'm doing that with my son and we're praying every day. So one of my greatest gifts that I've given my son is spirituality. I'm not going to say religion. Mm-hmm. It's spirituality. There's a higher power. My family always believed in God. And we went to church when we were young, but I'm not going to say it was a spiritual household. I think, again, both of my parents right now watching the podcast, they are strong believers in God. Yeah. But it wasn't a household where it was referenced often. Me, I'm a little bit different. I'm tapped into my faith in a different way. Mm-hmm. And so the greatest gift one of the greatest gifts I wanted to give my son was the power of faith. I remember he went to Riverdale Baptist. And when he was very young, he would pray before he went to sleep. I said, son, just do your prayers. And he would do his prayers, but he was just reciting something he learned at school. I said, son, tell me what that meant, what you just said. I don't know. Baby, we don't talk to God like that.
Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul
Come
to keep.
on, come on. And again, I mean, I understand. I said, but I want you
Yeah.
to talk to God like you talk to me. And he started saying, thank you, and pausing and thinking about it and contemplating. So when I pray with my son, I'm not necessarily reciting Bible verses. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong for those
Sure.
who do. But I'm saying he hears me pray for his mother. He hears me pray for my love life, my finances, my health, his goals, his dreams. He hears me saying that. So as he gets older, he's going to be a man that has heard, Daddy loves me. I can tell my father I love him.
Right.
He's heard me reference God and faith and in trials and tribulations and overcoming. This is how we can teach them and become that father 2.0. That maybe our fathers were father 1.0 and we become father 2.0.
Right.
So I have a question for you. I'm gonna bounce the same question back to you. What has changed for you when it comes to from the time you first had your daughter to the father you are now of her, but also expecting your son? Like, where are you at in terms of the gratifying aspects of fatherhood?
I think where I am, one of the big changes that happened in my life is patience. Ooh. Because I had to really learn patience, because when I first had my daughter, life wasn't, what it is right now. And there were so many different challenges that I was dealing with, that I really had little patience, because I got to get it. And I saw I read this book, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, and it taught me to
NLP.
have NLP.
Anthony Robbins. I got on that.
Hey, listen, man. But so it taught me, when you're having conversations with people, to get out of the first person and view the conversation from a third person view. You know what I'm saying? Like, how are you, look at yourself, look at your body language, look at how you're responding. Like, while you're talking, I'm automatically taking myself out of this view and looking at it from that view as an audience member. And so I did that with my daughter, and I saw, man, when I'd be helping her with her homework, bro, I'd be yelling at her. I'd be fussing at her. How you not getting this right? Come on, like we just went over this word 2 words ago and you got it wrong again. What are you doing? Like, why? And so I saw myself yelling at her, and I was like, yo, this is not good. This is not good. I cannot be this person. I saw that person from third person view, and I didn't like that person.
What age was she at this time?
She was like 4.
Wow. Okay.
In kindergarten.
Yeah.
And pre-K.
Where do you think that came from? I call that baby bark. Where that baby bark come from?
I was frustrated with my life, man.
Wow.
I was frustrated with my life, frustrated with my success, frustrated with where my life was going, which was nowhere at the moment. And I took all of that out on her.
Wow.
And I realized that was unfair to her, which was one of the leading reasons why I left Pennsylvania, because had I stayed, my fear was this would have only gotten worse, because my situation was not going to get better. Not in Pennsylvania, it wasn't. And so I had to make that choice to leave, because if I didn't, I could do more damage by what I did to her and how I treated her than I could if I had left.
Was it an overnight process? Because this is the thing about parenting, you can't point at one perfect parent. And growth takes time. And the fact that you were able to recognize was that an overnight process? Like, what was the aha moment to say, Jeff, why are you barking on her like that? Like, did it happen one day and it just it switched the next day? Was it a slow growth that you slowly started to come out of that space? Right.
It happened right after I read that chapter.
Nice.
And it was like the third or the fourth chapter in NLP. I did that I started doing it because I started practicing what I read.
Right.
And soon as I read it, I looked at it and I was like, yo, I don't like who I saw when I was studying at the table with my daughter. I didn't like who I saw. And I said, I immediately have to change that, like, right now. And I worked on it and I changed it, and I got more calm with her. And wouldn't you know it, she learned the stuff much faster than I did yelling at her, right? Go figure.
Right.
Go figure. But I still had a severe level of frustration, and then that was being taken out on her mom.
Right.
And then subsequently, I'm just like, all right, now that part of it is being taken out on her. And me and her mom were in this like fight back and forth of like, neither one of us wants to be the first to say goodbye. So we hold on to each other. And because it was convenient, because we're in a small town of 10,000 people, you know what I'm saying? Everybody knows everybody that's here, and I don't want to do or mess with anybody else. And, you know, she's doing whatever it is that she's doing. And so I said to myself, I'm like, I gotta stop. I was loving out of convenience. I was loving because it was convenient, and I'm just going to keep going back because it's convenient. Why would I go anywhere else when, you know, this is convenient for me? And so when I got away from it, it was easier for me to practice more on myself and continue to read and continue to develop in that person. And now, you know, I've been here since 2018. So 5 years later, I'm in a much healthier place now mentally, and I can be there. I've learned how to be there more for my daughter, even in my absence.
But what's crazy, and this goes back to how we started the conversation, when you asked me something along the lines of being a good father and being able to, you know, be the best for your child. And my answer was, it starts with us, our own healing. I got a chance years ago to be a part of a group called the Manhood Tour. It was myself, my good friend Asani Pettiford with Couples Academy. Him and his wife do amazing work around the world helping couples. And then we also had my buddy Dondre Whitfield, the actor. And we were traveling the country. And one of the things we would do, we were just addressing audiences about manhood. And we went all over the country doing it, work with Halle Berry for a couple shows. But Hassani had this great message that he would always say. I always give him credit for this. He said, if you want to be a good father, be a good man first. If you want to be a good entrepreneur,
Facts.
be a good man first. If you want to be a good leader, be a good man. Your characters, your morals, standing on your deen, like being solid with your principles. And it's funny because I think nowadays, I don't think values and integrity and principles mean as much as they used to.
I agree.
And so now it's like, I really want to make sure that my son is a good person.
Yeah.
It's not about just the bag. It's not just about the flash and likes and dislikes. If you make a person solid in terms of their characters, their self-belief, their decision-making, no matter what's going on in the world, they're going to be prepared to handle it, and they're going to find their self-love and self-worth in any situation because they're built on character.
Yeah.
And again, where does that come from? Us. But we can't teach what we're not. Yeah. So if we have poor character, we have poor integrity, we don't have self-belief, we don't have self-love, we don't have self-value,
right.
How can you teach? And you know what? When I just got done with this tour in Jersey, I told every audience, I said, you know what I love about you guys? And it's a high school group.
Right.
They said, what, Mr. Heat? I said, young people have a high bullshit meter. You guys can smell the BS, right?
Yeah.
And I said, do me a favor. If you smell it on me, pull my card. So I'm very genuine with my son that I want him to see that your father is always a masterpiece and a work in progress.
Right.
But these are the things I value. I value working on my character. I value working on my integrity. I work on my communication so that you can be the better person.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
And again, and this goes back to the older generation. The older generation paid those bills, made sure that food was in the fridge, the car had gas in it, and just holidays, there was a gift under that tree. Like my father and mother were amazing. But sometimes the typical father of that generation may not have been as communicative. Does that make sense? Yeah. And engaging because they were taught that's what the mother does.
Right.
We go pay these bills.
Right.
But I think as a modern day man, you can do both. I can pay these bills and still say I love you. I can go out here and fight the good fight as a black man living in America, but I can still come home and hug you and love you and tell you that I love you. And I think on this Father's Day, men, we need to be able to master both realms. Is that emotionally engaging our children while also being strong providers?
I definitely agree. It's so funny that you said everything that you just said, because literally I was going to do a post last week that I forgot to do, and I was going to say you can't be a good parent without being a good person. It's dang near impossible for you to be a good parent and be a good person. And one of the reasons why you find it difficult to motivate your kids is because you haven't motivated yourself.
Right.
You want your kids to go out here and get A's in school, but you're getting F's in life.
Big facts.
You want your kids to go out here and you want them to try harder, and you haven't tried at anything. You've quit pretty much everything that you've ever done or tried in your life. And it doesn't have to be something on a significant level, like go open up a Fortune 500 business.
Right.
It's just like, yo, get up and actually go and do something with yourself that makes your kids say, I see my mom trying, I see my dad trying, you know what, I'm going to do the exact same thing, right? We are literally the first teachers of our kids, and our kids listen to more of what we do than what we say.
It's funny you say that. My son's mother just got her doctorate. from USC. And so in preparation for her trip, she, hit my line and said, "Hey, Brian, can you watch Quest? Because I have to make this trip." Now, unfortunately, I was going to be out of town moving. It was my week that I wasn't going to have him. But I said and I talked to Quest's son, "I think you should go anyway. Like, even if I was here, you need to go. You need to see your mother walking across that stage and getting this black woman getting this doctorate degree that she's worked very hard for. You as a young, whether you get a doctorate degree or not, you need to see the effort and the reward of one of those things that happen."
Yeah.
Recently, I've been allowing Quest to hear purposely me talking on the phone about these 5-figure deals and these opportunities I have around the country. And I'm telling him, matter of fact, I was on the phone with somebody the other day, and I'm not going to talk about all the numbers, but someone was telling me, just forecasting, some revenue that may be coming in. And I said, "Hold up, Slim, say that again one more time, what you just told me." And I went into my son's room and let him say it again. And my son was like, "Dang, Dad." And I finished my call and I came back. I said, "Son, that's effort. That's strategy." I said, "All praise due to God for the opportunity, but that didn't come out of nowhere, and never think that those type of numbers do." Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it's not about a flex.
Yep.
It's not about any of that. It's about finding value, but also living examples. And I say this. I grew up, and I know you heard this too, I grew up with this mindset of when you have children, you stop living your life and you live for them. Now, I understand the context, but I think sometimes we swing that too far left.
Facts.
And you become this parent and you stop dreaming. You stop going after the things that you know. And I'm not saying like bullshit ass dreams. I'm talking about things that were placed, I call it divine assignments, that I know I was given a divine assignment. I'm not going, God is only going to give you what he knows you can handle.
Right.
I'm not going to stop my divine assignment because I have a child. I'm going to find a way to be the best father possible while completing my divine assignment so that my son can see the same thing.
A lot of times people don't believe you can have two things at once. They only believe you can either be a good father or you can do your divine assignment. They don't believe
you have to be intentional.
You definitely got to be intentional.
You can chase that dream so much you begin to neglect your child.
Right, for sure.
Everything's for the bag and everything's I got to go here, I got to go here, I got to go there. I know some entrepreneurs that are mega successful. I'm talking about millionaires, damn near billionaires. They're public successes, but they're private failures.
Right.
They have no engagement with their children. They may be on their third divorce. They're miserable behind closed doors, but that bank account is crazy.
Yeah.
I never wanted that.
Yeah.
So I wanted a healthy balance of chasing my divine assignment, but also loving my son along the way, loving my partner, my romantic partner, whoever that is. And so that became something powerful for me is, can I chase my dreams and not neglect the personal life that really is the core of who I am?
Yeah, man. I and that's one of the challenges that I have been tasked with, particularly because my daughter, she lives in Pennsylvania, and with that, you get all of the all your deadbeat and you ran away from responsibilities and all of those different things, man. But again, going back to that call with my daughter, because she is proud of what I'm doing, that's the only validation that I need. I don't need anyone else's validation. I don't need her mom's validation. I don't need my mom's or my family's validation. The only validation that I needed was from her on that day to say, "Dad, I'm proud of you, and I wanted to show you to my friends."
Right.
Yeah.
I know how that made you feel. So again, I guess it's wrapping up this side of the conversation, man. Fatherhood has been one of the greatest, most fulfilling blessings. And what's dope about it is, with a 14-year-old, I mean, I'm going to be fathering him for the rest of his life. Michael Jordan at his Hall of Fame speech made a comment, and I saw this clip in the new movie Air.
Okay.
And it's at the end of the movie during the credits, and he says he was talking about his mom. I didn't really know how much his mom was a part of what happened with the Nike deal and the Jordans. Like, him getting a percentage of every shoe came from his mom. That didn't come from him. She literally told Nike, Michael needs to get a percentage of every shoe, which was crazy. That was a game changer for business, sports, the whole shebang.
Right.
But at that podium, he said, "I love that woman, and the beautiful part is, even at my age, she's still mothering me." And so I'm just excited that I've had 14 years with my son, and I'm hoping to have 1 million more, to not just father him, but to be his friend, to be a life partner, watching him go through highs and lows and love and in love, out of love, and the highs and lows of life, and finding careers and battling life's adversity. I get to walk that with him.
Yeah.
And he came from me. It's not just anyone.
Yeah.
But it's been beautiful, bro.
That's amazing, man. So there was another question that you had where you were talking.
So I want to unpack something with you, man. And this
in.
is something that's in real time. Is I've heard this somewhere, and I thought it was a really dope concept. And it's a cliche quote, but I thought it was dope for what I'm experiencing right now, and I think we've all experienced. That God will test you in two ways. Mm-hmm. God will test you, one, in taking everything from you. God will then also test you in giving everything to you.
Right.
And I'm in that second phase. I've experienced both, but I'm in that second phase. But I kind of want to bounce it off you. I'll do the second. I'll let you do the first one. What are the life lessons for those out there that they believe that they may be experiencing that rock bottom experience? They're in a real bad situation, and this is the reality, they may have contributed to the fact that they're in that situation. Or
most likely they did.
Right. Or they may be the victim of something that happened they had no control over. But you're in a space where you just don't feel like you have the resources, you don't have the support, you don't have the self-belief, like you're in a really, really dark place. I think we all can relate to that. But I believe that these are tests that create a testimony.
For sure.
So for you, what are those lessons that we can gain from when God seems to take everything from you? What are some of the life lessons we can pull from that?
So I think this segues perfectly into my book that's going to be coming out. It's called WMD.
Let's get a dap on the book. All power moves get daps.
It's called WMD, and it's WMD traditionally stands for Weapons of Mass Destruction. But for me, it stands for Wisdom of Mass Distribution.
I like it.
And what I've noticed about life is that life will distribute lessons on you in a mass way, as long as you're able to pay attention to what the lesson is. And so for me, I've always looked at rock bottom as the preparation, right? Before a rocket goes into the air, what has to happen is the fire and all of the stuff has to come out, and then eventually it gets to the point, and it's there for a couple of seconds, and then eventually it's shooting up, right? And so what I think with people who are experiencing those rock bottom moments is, number one, you have this is the most important part of it, right? The most important part of it is when you're building resilience, is when your skin is building those scabs and those muscles and molecules and stuff like that are coming together. Like, this is your preparation moment for what's about to happen. And then if you can embrace that and you can find the lesson within the test, right, that's kind of when things start to move in a positive way. And for me, what happened in my life was, being at my lowest, June 4th, 2014, I lost my house and my job the same exact day. And what happened in that moment was I became the person that I was supposed to become, because we all know the saying, the most beautiful part about hitting rock bottom is that the only place to go from there is up, no doubt. Right? So when you find yourself at rock bottom, one of the things that you have to understand is that from here, this is your moment to work on you personally, right? You got to do all of the inner work. When I think about it, the short story of this whole thing is, in my speech about building the perfect you, right? I talk about building a perfect you is like building a perfect house. You remember on cleaning Saturdays when this wasn't no regular clean, right? Like, you had to do like the dirty work. You had to do the inside. You got to unthaw the refrigerator, unthaw the freezer, clean that stuff out. You got to clean inside the gasket. You got to push the couch back and vacuum behind the couch. You got to pull the stove out and clean behind the stove and in between the stove and the refrigerator. And then you got to lift up the part of the stove, put the little joint up on it that goes like that make it look like a car hood. You got to get up underneath there. That's the stuff that we got to do in our lives. Some of us
shadow work sometimes. That when no one's seen.
Right.
The work you're doing behind closed doors.
Exactly.
Right.
Some of us in our lives, we need to do a Saturday clean in our lives.
Right. How do you get through, though? Because sometimes, and this is where they poke fun and they kind of discredit motivators and influencers, because we say things like it's easy. We'll say, oh, do this and power through and get to, do the dirty work. But there is a level of depression. Yeah. There is a level of mental fatigue, of hopelessness, that it's hard to commit yourself to cracking those books and doing the clean, because you're depressed. That dark space it goes beyond, like, you can be in a space where you don't want to crack the book. You don't want to watch the YouTube video. You're such in a dark space because you didn't, as a child, we have these high hopes. You know, you talk to a kid when they're young and I say, Quest, what do you want to be? I want to be Superman, Spider-Man, the president, and a doctor. And what does that signify? High hopes.
Right.
But then 20 years later, you're like broke as a joke, struggling. You may be battling addictions. You may have debt.
Right.
You may have crushed relationships. And now you talking about watch a YouTube video or crack this book. Man, I'm done out here mentally. I don't got it. I'm not in a great space.
Yep.
How do you battle the mental health side of being in dark spaces?
This is great because I just had this dialogue in a conversation at work, and it was a heated exchange. And I said, once you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. So once you believe that you are defeated, you can have it.
Yeah.
Once you believe this is difficult, this is hard. Once you tell yourself this is difficult, this is hard, I can't get through it, you are going to have that. Your body is going to respond the way that your mind tells it to, right? So if it doesn't matter, I don't care what it looks like. I don't care if I'm down 50 and there's only 5 minutes left. I still got a shot.
Yep.
I still got a shot. I'm telling myself I still got a shot. I don't care if I don't have the money, if I don't have the resources, if I don't have the energy, if I don't have this. If there is still breath in these lungs, I still got a shot at it, right? And so what you got to do is you got to convince yourself that you still got a shot.
Yes.
You got to convince yourself. None of it is going to work. Nobody's going to believe it. Your body isn't going to believe it if your mind doesn't believe it first. And even when it doesn't look like it's working, can you still do it even when it doesn't look like there's any progress happening?
That was a quote I saw this morning. I also say this, I think from the mental health standpoint, if you're in a space where you believe that God is taking things from you, one, make sure you're accountable.
Right.
Big facts. You can't, don't play the victim if you're not the victim. If you are the one that put yourself in that trick bag, own it. You have to own it before you excel beyond it.
Yeah.
But then it becomes, for me, I had to know during my dark times, what are my positive triggers? What are the things that make me feel good? So in my mind, it was always working out.
Right.
It was always associating myself with good people that had good energy.
Right.
It was certain music. Like I remember right now, there's a song by Sounds of Blackness. If I'm ever in a bad space, when I put on Optimistic by Sounds of Blackness, for some reason, boy, I'm up.
Listen, I'm up all the way.
But I feel a certain vibe. So my thing is, if you're going through that dark space, what are you doing that you can control in terms of music, people, places that you can go and feel good? Sometimes we begin to wallow in our negative triggers. And you ask the average person, they can tell you all the things that bloat them. Like, this person annoys me, this place annoys me, I hate this, I hate that. There are specialists at telling you all the things they hate. But then you ask them what they love, and they get real quiet. You have to get to know the things that bring out the best version of you and start to add that to your life, because if you can't get your mental together, it's going to be hard to crack that book, to watch that YouTube video, and to kind of get out of that dark space.
And you know what? So I was in Michigan yesterday, 2 days ago, and I did my presentation, and one of them said, I'm a visual learner, and I love the example. She loved the example that I gave, Dr. Harvey. So I told her, I said, picture a bucket of water right here, right? And you take 10 tea bags and you put those tea bags in the water, right? What's going to happen is that water is going to eventually turn brown.
Yes.
Right. Now, here's that right there is equivalent to all of the negative stuff that we have in our minds, right? How do you get that water to change color without losing the amount of water that's in it?
Right.
Well, what you do is you take regular clean water and you just pour it into it.
Right.
And that's the positive stuff. That's the podcast. That's the books. That's the conferences. That's the workshops. And you just keep pouring it. And what's going to happen is that the water is going to begin to overflow. And all of the brown stuff is eventually going to flow out of this bucket. And then eventually you're going to pour in so much of the clean stuff that water is going to look mostly clear. Now, what's going to happen is we're always going to throw another tea bag in there, right? We're always going to, we're going to have something negative. Some challenge is going to happen. But what you got to do is you got to keep pouring in, like you got to get more buckets of water, more buckets of clean, more books, more interviews, more podcasts, more of this stuff, and keep pouring it in there. And the more you pour into it, the more clear that life, that mind, that body, that soul, that emotional health, that mental health, that physical health, that spiritual health, that financial health becomes the more you pour into it. But you got to keep pouring.
Yeah. But here's the key. And I think you know this. You have to have the self-belief that you're worth the process. If you don't believe you're worth the process, you're not going to do any of that.
Right.
And so I always tell people, you only attract what you believe you're worthy of possessing.
Yes.
So do you see yourself worthy of the life you desire?
Yeah.
And if you do, you'll embrace the process because you know that you're worth that. You want that. It's for you.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I kind of hope it's on the right example. I did a speaking engagement years ago, and I was in a space talking about mental health, and a woman, she was probably about a 65-year-old white woman. She was an educator, and she made a comment about that she had been diagnosed with ADHD. And then someone else in the audience was like, well, how long have you had that disability? And the woman looked at her like, disability? I don't have a disability. That's my superpower. I said, yes. I love it. It was a perspective shift.
Yeah.
That she no longer saw the things that society deemed as plaguing, that she was able to take something that somebody else saw as a limitation and turn it. But again, it was a mindset shift. You say that I can't do this for this reason. I say it's for that reason that I can.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Once you accept it, that's once you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them.
And that's why I brought it up. 'Cause I thought it was
right. That's the perfect example. And I was literally talking about that. And one of my colleagues was just saying that, they have a mental health. But I'm like, is a mental health condition a good enough reason to not do anything?
Right.
I get that these women they have mental health issues, but that's no reason to say I've got to take the next 4 years of my life to deal with this mental health thing, and I'm not going to apply for a job. I'm not going to try to get better. I'm not going to do a resume. I'm not going to do all because I have this mental health issue. Is that a good enough reason to not do anything? And she never answered me, right? So I'm like, it's not a good enough reason. You can work on your mental health and apply for a job.
But you know what? Nowadays, bro. And this, I hate to use the word. Well, I'm not going to use it, but I'll say this: there's a lot of excuses.
I'll say this: people weaponize mental health.
Oh, absolutely.
They weaponize it. My mental health now. All of a sudden, 20, 40 years ago, for the past 30, 40 some years, black people, we didn't know anything about mental health. Now, all of a sudden, I got every mental health condition in the world, and I can't do this because of my mental health.
And I'm going to bring up a scenario, but I also want us to go back to, the topic. But, even with the Ja Morant situation, I did during my tour, I had an opportunity to go to Eastside High School, which is the iconic Joe Clark Lean On Me school. But I went there twice. And the first time I went, I was with the athletes. And the topic was Ja Morant, the greatest story that may never be told. Talking about decision making and choices. I think it's completely unfair. And again, I hope I'm wrong, and I'm hoping it does come out. And I'm not saying I hope that this is what he's battling, but I'm seeing that, and it's hard to even say because I hope it's not true. I hope I'm off. They're using mental health to cover up poor decision making, and it's a PR move, in my opinion. It's a PR move. They know that it's very polarizing, and people will back off you when you say mental health.
Yep.
Brother, you are a hyper talented individual with God-given ability that not only do you have that, your father at a very early age kind of like reminds me of Beyonce's father, who actually built a stage in the back of their house and quit his job to cultivate and build Destiny's Child, who eventually laid the groundwork for Beyonce.
Right.
Ja Morant's father did the same thing.
Yep.
His court in his backyard, and like really built his son and helped his son develop the talent. All this work you put in. And now because you want to, it's clout chasing or whatever you want to call it, you want to go on lives and do dumb shit with guns. And brother, you're in a space where most men, let alone black and brown boys, dream of being professional athletes. You've reached that upper echelon.
The 0.001%.
They're talking about you being the American face of basketball globally, one of those American athletes. And you want to play with guns and make all these poor choices over and over again. Even after people have given a quick little slap and allowed you to keep moving, you do it again and again. Brother, that's not mental health. That's poor choices.
That's piss poor decision making.
And then I'm wondering around you, like, fam, if I'm around you as your father, and this is another shot, I'm again, Papa,
Morant.
Papa Morant, no shots, B, but just seeing it from a distance. I don't care how successful my son's going to be. I'm never going to be the groupie than the father.
Yeah.
You're not going to turn me from his father into a groupie.
Right.
And from
just because you're making more money than me now.
Right. And from a distance, I feel like he's turned into the groupie on the sidelines. I didn't even know who the dude was at first because he had like the big glasses, the jewelry. Yeah. I thought he was a retired player like from the Grizzlies. Oh, that's his pops.
That's his pops.
And then, it's so funny. I don't see the accountability. And what they do, they weaponize mental health. Even recently, I was in the gym and I had another apology from him. I apologize to all the kids that I hurt. I'm going to start working on my choice making and deal with my mental health. And I said, man, listen.
It's not mental health.
It's not mental health. And this is the thing. There are real people out here dealing with real mental health issues from a real diagnosis space.
Yeah.
Don't water down the need to help these people by your inability to make good choices.
I 100% agree. And I think that's best left said right there, man.
Boom. So let's switch gears. So we said, first of all, was the life lessons that can be learned in when God takes everything from you.
Yep.
Now, what's funny is one of the reasons why I came to the headquarters today to rock with my guy was expansion.
Yeah.
And when things in your life go from, God bless little things that turn into major glow ups, but you have to be prepared.
Yep.
That again, the quote we're talking about is, God tests you in two ways. One, when he takes everything from you, but two, when he gives everything to you.
Yep.
And I'm in that space. Mm-hmm. So speak to it, man. When you do see the overflow, when you do see these opportunities, you have to be prepared. And you can't just be lit. You got to be prepared that, and again, if you're not, you can look back in 5 years and say, yo, I messed that up. I fumbled the whole bag because I wasn't ready. But speak to the life lessons available to us when we're expanding and the glow up is occurring.
This is the reason why when you're at your lowest, you have to do the self work and the inner work, because that's the stuff that is preparing you for how to handle your blessing.
Yes.
And so when you get that blessing, my question that I ask my people all the time is, if God gave you everything that you prayed for right now, would you be ready for it? And so a lot of them said no. And for me, I was like, yes, absolutely. Because I know that I've done the work, right? I know that I figured out what I needed to figure out to get to where I am. And then I'm ready and I'm in preparation for that next moment. And so when God starts to really bless you and he starts to give you the things that you desire, he is literally asking you to show him what you have become so that he can ensure that you're ready for continued blessings. So it's literally just like trials and tribulations are an opportunity for you to show how much you've grown. So is success an opportunity for you to show how much you've grown, because he's only going to give you what he believes that you're ready for and what you can handle, right? So if he's giving you all of these blessings, he believes that you're ready to receive these blessings, right? Now, some of us, we have to think about that old saying where it's like, am I more afraid to fail or am I more afraid to succeed? Right. Facts. And we can't be afraid to succeed because, and I wrote something the other day that said, the more money you make, the more it's going to cost you. The more money bars. Is going to cost you, big right? Big bars. The more money you make, the more money is going to cost you, because now you got to start doing things different and you got to start operating at a different level, at a different capacity. You can't be who you once were, right? This next version of your life is going to require the best version of you. Right. And so like whatever that is, you got to shed your skin. You know what I'm saying? You got to turn into this person that you need to be for this next level. Right. And that next level is going to require the best version of you. So everything that you learned, all of those little lessons that you picked up along the way of becoming this person when you were down, it's now time to put those things into effect and into motion so that you can be who this version of your life is requiring you to be.
So let's narrow it down and talk entrepreneurship. Let's specifically talk about, which is I'm experiencing now, where it's so funny. What's the old quote, Jeff, that says, don't complain about what's on your plate when you said you were hungry.
When you said you wanted to eat. That's
big energy, big bars.
You know what? My wife is pregnant right now, right? And she can feel her stomach growing because she feels her body stretching, right? You can feel yourself growing because you're being stretched right now. You can feel it. And we had the conversation over the phone, just like, yo, I'm overwhelmed right now. I'm a little bit
in a good way though.
Yeah, for sure.
You can be overwhelmed and depressed.
Yeah, facts.
I'm overwhelmingly excited.
Yes.
But it's a lot of demand being placed on me. But I have to lean on something. You said that God's not going to give you something He doesn't believe you can handle.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You can't handle it.
And one of my lines in my poem is, I remember being stressed out and overlooked. Nowadays, I'm still stressed out, but more because I'm overbooked.
Yo, make sure y'all hear what my man just said, because we need to rewind that. He said on the phone, that's real. One more time.
I remember being stressed out and overlooked. Nowadays, I'm still stressed out, but more because I'm overbooked.
Big facts.
And so where you're at right now, and I believe I'm moving into that space too. It's like, how do I handle all of these things? And sometimes, man, I remember seeing a video of the guy holding on to all of these different things, and God has this thing that He wants you to grab, but you can't grab it because you keep holding on to this. But you're like, I like this thing. I love it. I love it. And it's like, no, I got something bigger for you. It's like, but what about this? What I'm gonna do with this? You gotta there's beauty in death, right? Some things have to die for new things to grow.
Yes.
So we got to allow some stuff to die for this other stuff to grow.
Right.
Because he can't give us what we feel like we deserve if we're still holding on to those other things, man. And it's scary.
Right.
And it's treacherous. It's lonely. It's all of those different things, but it's necessary.
So let's dig into it. What are, from your standpoint, like 3 to 5 things as an entrepreneur when you are experiencing an overflow? What should you have in place? What's a mindset? What are some things, like you and I even talked about something as simple? You know, I had a voicemail that was on my personal phone, and it was funny. A client reached out to me. Again, another a 5-figure deal. You know, real bad.
Right.
And you know, she messed with me and said, "Brian, how you gonna be Brian Heat Worldwide?" And your voicemail for that particular call was not, it didn't do what it was supposed to do.
Right.
She kind of caught me slipping for a hot minute, like, oh, I didn't know that was, you know, and you were like, hey, yo, Heat, that we can't do that. You know, you can't be Brian Heat Worldwide and your voicemail is saying it's full, or it's not saying the right message or the right professional tone.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because we can be out here just getting it. You know, we out here just going after it. But when you really, it becomes almost like your let's talk about your business representation, your business profile.
Yes.
Talk about that with regards to when you're in that season of overflow and you're experiencing God give you everything. How important is it to look professional?
Yeah. So representation breeds reality. Yeah. Right. So in order to do business like a business, you have to represent and present yourself as such. Right.
Big facts.
When we're getting $100 for a speaking engagement and stuff like that, it's okay to not have a voicemail. Right.
Facts.
But when we're talking about 5-figure deals and when we're talking about anything that has a comment in it for real, we got to get to that point where we do have a voicemail. That's something that I've always overlooked, but I have it, but I overlooked it. You know what I'm saying? Your email, you can't be, you know what I'm saying, super recognizable, but then when somebody goes to book you, and I just had this recently with somebody, it's blah 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 at gmail.com. I'm like, bro, you gotta step, bro, you were, I'm not gonna say that because I don't know if he's gonna watch it, but I'll tell you off of it. I'm like, bro, you can't be at gmail.com, bro. Facts. Like not anymore, not from where you've been. You got to be there. So number one, I want you to have a professional back office setup, meaning you want to have your voicemail, you want to have your email set up. Right. Number two, I need you to have some sort of system that helps you to keep aligned with the people that you contact and that you communicate with. CRM. CRM, exactly. You can't have all of these people in your phone book anymore. There has to be some sort of database that houses these people, because you need to know how you know these people. You're going to meet hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people, and you're going to want to connect with them, and you don't want to be going through your phone like, dang, how do I know these people again? What did I do? I can't even remember what I did. For me, I know what school I went to, what I spoke about when I went to that school, and everything, right? I need you to know those things. If you don't know those things, you might mess around and slip up. On the back end of that too, you want to have a way to get repeat and referral business, right? We talk about repeat and referral business all the time. One of the ways that I get repeat and referral business is 30 days after you do any event or any engagement, send a gift. 30 days. Keep yourself on their minds, right? You want to keep you present in their minds. And so when we think about just setting up a business, having your back office, having a CRM, and then doing something that makes them feel special to create a full experience even after you're gone.
And one of the things I think also we've talked about recently is at some point, and this also is a wealth principle or just a prosperity principle, I don't want to trade dollars for hours for the rest of my life. If I have to be there to do everything to earn these 5-figure, 6-figure, 7-figure deals, that's a problem. Because now it all is on me. And if I want to go out of town with my lady and be on the black sand beaches or be out of the country with my son, my business stops.
Right.
Someone said recently, and I heard on the gram, they said you could be self-employed or you can be a business owner.
Yeah, that's what I heard. It was like if you can't leave your business for 3 weeks and it still operate, then you're not a business owner. You're 3 months. Yeah. Okay, then he says you're self-employed.
Facts.
And I was like, yo, that's a bar right there, because you can this stuff run on automation, and do you have a team that can make that? Yeah.
So talk about that a little bit, because I know you're a big believer in it. I'm in a space now where some of these things that I have coming up, I cannot do without a team.
Yeah,
I don't care how impressive and my talent on the stage as a stage killer, motivational speaker, and author, all the things I do. Some of the things I have coming up, it's going to require more than just me.
Yeah.
So talk about maybe having the assistant. Talk about having recreating yourself and other people and aligning their purpose with your vision to tackle bigger projects, again, as a part of this expansion as God gives you more.
Yeah. So one of the things that I think about, I think about number one, having an assistant. I would encourage everybody to read the book Who Not How, because in the book Who Not How, it forced me to think beyond, like, yo, why am I going to spend money for someone to do something that I could do myself?
Facts.
But what you need to do is you need to spend more time doing what it is that you find the most pleasure in doing, which I find the most pleasure in speaking. I don't really find much pleasure in doing the behind the scenes stuff.
Right.
And look at what you're spending on them as an investment as opposed to a cost.
Right.
That's literally it's the mind shift.
Pause. Big bars. Investment versus cost. Unpack that.
Yeah. So the investment is in her to essentially bring me more money, right? One of my lines in my poem is
more time.
Yeah. That's what I was about to say. One of my lines in my poem is, I spend more money to buy back my time. Oh, how times have changed. Right. So what I'm doing is I'm okay with spending money because I need to buy back the time, because the more time I can spend doing what it is that I love to do, the less time I got to spend doing what it is that I don't like to do. Right. So having that, the first person that I think any business should hire would be an admin person, somebody to help them behind the scenes. And then from there, you got to start surrounding yourself with people who can operate at the same level as you or who are above you. That's why I think it's so important to have that 33% rule, like 33% above you that you can grow into, 33% that's growing with you, that you're growing with, and then 33% below you that you can pull up at that you can pull up. And so now when you start getting these different checks, man, what I learned and I figured out is that the more money that I pay people who come with me, the less I got to pay Uncle Sam at the end of the year. Because regardless, and you can get the check, you can get the bag, I know, but you're going to have to pay that to somebody. Right. And if I have anything to do with it, if I can help it, I'd rather pay it to you to come with me to perform or to speak than pay it to Uncle Sam at the end of the year. Because but that's about, understanding money, understanding taxes, understanding business setups. And I'm not saying that I understand those things 100%. What I am saying is that I understand those things because I surround myself with people who have that knowledge and I take from them.
And you're curious. I think that's one of your greatest attributes. And I think entrepreneurs, we have to remain curious. And the reason why I said it's the spark plug of personal development.
I agree.
I think a lot of times when you get beyond college, someone made a comment recently, I think I posted it on my gram, people confuse education with school.
Yeah. Yeah, heavy.
Because for them,
Heavy.
and so they now have a negative connotation of education.
Yep.
Because they think about sitting in the classroom all day learning bullshit.
Yeah.
And learning things that aren't relevant to their lives.
Right.
And being forced to talk about things and learn things and recite things that now as an adult, they almost feel like it was like, bamboozled. Like, y'all bamboozled me.
Right.
I took all these student loans. I sat up in these classrooms for 12 plus years, and I get into the real world, and none of this information is relevant.
Right.
But you have to continue your education.
Mm-hmm.
Now it becomes, I almost say the real education starts when you're out of school.
Yeah.
And this is me as an educator. I'm a professional educator by trade. And I'm telling people, damn near becomes, for some adults, that you really start your personal development growth when you're done with school. Because now it's tailored to you.
Yep.
So when, again, give you your flowers, I think you're very curious when it comes to, and 19 Keys spoke to this on something he was doing with Dame Dash recently, is all this new technology, all this stuff that's coming into our world, don't be afraid of it.
Yeah.
Embrace it and figure out how can you utilize it to grow in the ways you need to grow. But if you're not curious, and people say, you know what, one of my mantras is, smart people know they know very little.
Agreed.
And there's so much information out there they could be working on.
Agreed.
But the dumb person embraces like they think everything they know is everything there is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not true.
And they don't want to learn anymore. But
again, it goes back to their connotation of school.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like that. I don't care if you make YouTube University in your car.
Facts.
I don't care if it's a book. It could be me sitting down chopping. I've learned more things just me and you chopping it up on the phone. Mm-hmm. That's not me sitting down taking a test and studying and doing all that. And sometimes it requires that too. But there's so many ways to learn. Mm-hmm. Like there's a new crew out of and this is a shout to you guys called Off School Grounds, and it's a collection of Black and brown and multiracial, I do believe, but I think it's really African American principals all across the country that was developed during the time of the pandemic. And so their leadership connected with the hip hop community and different corporate sponsors, all these amazing things they're doing. It's cool because what the power of it is the power of the community.
Right.
So every single Thursday, they have a meetup call like 4:30 where you have all these Black administrators on this call leaning on each other's brilliance, leaning on each other's progressive thoughts and ideas about how are they helping inner city schools. Now, I'm just finding this group. I feel like I just found my tribe. Shout out to y'all, man. I can't get to the next event that I can attend, but I'm just finding them myself. But the brilliance is, to me, that's education.
Yeah.
Me getting on those calls, I'm learning. The age I am now, I'm still learning. I'm learning how are they impacting greater? How are they supporting each other greater? And so for me, we really have to make sure, even in our greatest moment when we believe that God is giving us everything, I think that's the key component is still remain a student.
Yes. And
figure out those tools, those mindsets, that clarity of space so that you can properly handle the bag.
Yes.
I always say this, when God gives you an opportunity and you fully take it on, you take no shorts, you're fully prepared, you cut no corners, God says, oh, Jeff is listening. Mm-hmm. Jeff is paying attention. Jeff is grateful. Let us continue to give him more opportunity.
Yeah.
But in the middle of your overflow, in the season of everything coming to you, if you take it for granted, you start barking and telling everybody about your success, and you're not really you're just so happy you have it that you're not handling it. You're not really growing. You're not learning. You're not trying to grow your team. That season is going to be very short-lived.
It's definitely going to be. You got to learn how to treat success. You got to learn how to be responsible with the blessings that you're given. And if you're not responsible with them, and if you don't take advantage of them, man, I say you're. I wrote a line in another poem, man. I love my poetry. I swear I do. I say your goals and dreams are like your baby. Don't ever give it up for adoption.
Big facts. One more time. Rewind.
Your goals and dreams are like your baby. Don't ever give it up for adoption.
Yeah.
And you got to learn how to treat it. You got to learn how to nourish it. You got to learn how to nurture it. You got to teach.
Yeah.
You got to teach your dream how to be your dream.
Yeah.
And you got to teach yourself how to honor and how to respect that and how to hold on to that, man.
Hey, yo, let me tell you something, B. I hope and pray that whoever's watching this caught these jewels.
I hope they did.
Because, bro, so much was told, and these are real life experiences you and I are talking about.
Facts.
We both have probably experienced seasons where God has taken everything from us. Mm-hmm. And we have also experienced when God has given us that provision.
Yeah.
And I think both are invaluable seasons. Mm-hmm. And there are nuggets in both seasons. And I think the more you master both and grow from both, you have the opportunity to evolve. I was on the phone with one of my guys, Jamie Tyler, from Love and Marriage DC. And he and I just got in a dope text message conversation yesterday before I stepped out. And he said, man, I'm the same old me, Brian. You know, despite the fame of my show and the brand of me and my wife, I'm the same. I said, Jamie, my mantra is never change, but always be evolving.
Yeah.
Never change the core of who you are, but never stop evolving. I don't care about your success, your money, your recognition. Always be evolving to be the best person you can be, so that you can be the best entrepreneur, the best father, the best leader you can be. But you have to not to be afraid of evolving.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you, man. The evolution of who we are is, you know, predicated on the lessons that we learn, yo. And so, man, listen, there was so much dropped in this joint, man. I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate the vulnerability in this, man, from fatherhood to talking about these blessings, to talking about, you know, the stresses of these, right? Like I love the song by Jay-Z called Success, and he talks about just how stressful success can be. And we have to learn from our ups. Like there's so many lessons. We talk about lessons in our losses, but there's also a lot of lessons in our wins, because you got to learn how to win. You got to learn how to win gracefully. You got to learn how to win with humility. And then you got to learn how to create wins out of your wins, man. And I think that's where we are in our lives right now is, taking the things that we have right now and actually moving those things forward, man, into further blessings.
Hey, that, you know, when you just, that verse, that song came from the Frank Lucas. That was on the
yeah. Oh, yeah.
But I remember the scene where the mafia dude was talking to him like, says, you don't want people to come after you, don't be successful.
Right. Yeah.
You want success, this is what comes with it. That was a bar in my head as you
Frankly, you can be unsuccessful and you can have friends, or you can be successful and you can have enemies. Right? Which one is it that you want?
Right.
And so, man, I absolutely love it, bro. I appreciate you coming on and coming and talk, man. We definitely got some work to do now.
Yep.
But this was great, man. Any words for fathers before we last encouraging words for the dads before we close it out?
Just love on your children.
Okay.
In a real way. It's not just about buying them clothes. It's not about, you know, what's the cliche? It's not about just the presents. It's about the presence.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I like it. Ooh.
And that's what I would just say. Love on your child. Yeah. And always be striving to be the best person you can be, so that you can be the best father you can be.
100%, man. Y'all heard it here first, man. Brian Heat, you got Backpack Jeff. Like, comment, share. And if you like this video, man, make sure you click on to the next one, man. Y'all know what it is. Always stay in your bag, so you never got to chase a bag. We out. That was good, man. That was good, man.
Bro, there's so many jewels in that thing, kid.